You're not supposed to see anything clearly during sleep paralysis. At least that's how people usually describe it. Shadows, movement, something unclear. But every once in a while, someone describes something specific. A figure standing still, usually in the corner of the room, tall, defined, and wearing something that shouldn't have detail, but does. A hat. And what's unsettling isn't just the experience, it's how often the same shape shows up. For people who've never met, never compared notes, and almost always, it's not doing anything. It's just standing there, watching. Tonight on the Midnight Drive, we're going to talk about more cases of the Hat Man. Most people who experience sleep paralysis don't see anything clearly. That's the baseline. You wake up, your body won't move, and your brain fills the room with something vague. Shadows, movement, pressure. Something that feels present, but not defined. And that makes sense because the brain is in between states, part dreaming, part awake. Trying to make sense of both at the exact same time. So when people describe something unclear, that tracks and that fits. But then there are the stories that don't fit that pattern. The ones where the figure isn't vague. It's actually quite specific. Clear enough that the brain doesn't have to guess. And those are the ones people tend to remember because they feel different. Not louder, not more aggressive, just more certain. And there's one version of that shows up more than anything else. A tall figure standing still and wearing a brimmed hat. Now, it would be easy to stop there and turn that into something bigger than it is. So let's not do that. Let's stay with what people are actually saying. They wake up, they can't move, their breathing feels shallow, their chest feels heavy. That part, consistent. And then they notice something in the room with them, usually in the corner, or near the doorway, or sometimes closer. And when their eyes adjust, they can make out a shape. Not fully detailed, but not formless either. Enough structure that certain things stand out. Height, shoulders, posture. And that outline on top. A hat. A wide brim. Flat. And that detail, that specific detail, is what sticks because it's not random. It's not something your brain would default to in a half dream state. At least, it doesn't feel like it should be. And what people describe it, they don't sound confused about that part. They're unsure about everything else, but not that. Not the hat. There's something about the hat. And that's where something starts to feel a little off. Not extreme, just enough to notice. Because if this is just the brain filling in gaps, then why that shape? Why that consistency? Now, there are explanations. Cultural imagery, shared symbols, things we've seen before. that resurface in altered states. That is a real thing, and that's very possible. But even with that, there's still something about the way it's described that doesn't fully settle. Because it's not just the shape, it's the behavior, or the lack of it. It doesn't rush, it doesn't attack, it doesn't even really move. It just stands there. And that stillness ends up being the part that people remember most. Because in a moment where everything feels unstable, your body not responding, your breathing feeling off, and your awareness caught somewhere in between, there's something in the room with you that's completely still. And that contrast does something. You feel it in your chest, in your hands. That tension that builds when something doesn't react the way you expect it to. Because part of you is waiting for it to move, to do something, anything. But it doesn't. And that's where the experience starts to sit a little bit deeper. Not because of what's happening, but because of what isn't happening. And that's a strange thing to sit with, because most fear comes from action. Something chasing you, something getting closer, something escalating. But this does not do that. It just holds. And your mind starts trying to fill that gap, trying to predict what happens next. And when nothing happens, that prediction loop just keeps running over and over and over. Your brain starts scanning details, the height, the shoulders, the angle of the head, trying to find something that explains it. Something that makes it feel less directed, less intentional. But the longer it stays still, the harder that becomes. Because stillness like that starts to feel like a choice. And that's where everything shifts. From something passive to something that feels like it's aware. Not proven, not something that you can point to, but something that you feel. And once you feel that, it's really, really hard to unfeel that, even after it's gone. Because eventually, it always ends. The body comes back, movement returns, breathing normalizes, and the room is just a room again. Nothing there, no figure, no shape, no hat. Just a memory. And that's where it gets a little quieter, because now you're left with two things that don't fully line up: the explanation and the experience. The explanation says your brain was in between states, that it generated something based on internal patterns, that it felt real because your body couldn't move. And that makes sense. But the experience doesn't feel random. It feels specific, structured, almost consistent. And that's the part that lingers, not loudly, not in a way that disrupts your entire day, just underneath. Because even if you land fully on a grounded explanation, there's still that question. Why the shape? Why the stillness? Why does it feel like that instead of anything else? And maybe there is a clean answer. Maybe it's just something we haven't fully mapped out yet. That happens all the time. But for right now, it's not fully settled. And because of that, the stories keep showing up. Different people, different places, same general shape, same posture, same stillness. And maybe that doesn't mean anything. Or maybe it's just one of those patterns that exists quietly in the space in between sleep and waking up. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? And if you have, I would love for you to tell us your story. We're going to be doing regular segments on this topic. You guys really seem to enjoy it. And so tonight we're going to be telling one or two listener stories. And so if you've got something for us, please let us know in the comments wherever you are listening. Or feel free to reach out to us, the Midnight Drive, on our hotline, 402-610-2836. Once again, 402 610 2836. Next up, your stories. Our first story tonight comes from someone that I'm going to call Marcus. He said that this happened when he was around 6 or 7 years old. The place? Vineland, New Jersey. Vibe? Stormy night. The kind where everything outside feels louder than it should. Wind pushing against the house. Rain hitting in bursts. He's inside with a babysitter. The family is out. And at some point, he walks up to the front door, just standing there, looking out through the screen. And that's when he sees it. Leaning against a telephone pole, not moving, arms crossed, legs crossed, like it's been there long enough to get comfortable. And even saying that, there's something about that detail that just sits wrong, because shadows don't get comfortable. They don't lean, they don't pose. But this one did. He said it had shape, clear enough that his brain didn't have to guess. Tall, broad shoulders, and that outline on top. A hat, wide brim. And then there's this part that sticks with him even now. He said the figure was laughing. Not loud, not even something that he could fully hear, but enough that he knew. And you can feel that, right? That difference between hearing something and just knowing that it's happening. And that's almost worse because it feels direct, like it's aimed specifically at you. He panics. He runs upstairs, gets under the covers. And even that reaction, it's immediate. No processing. Just get away. Hide. Make it stop. Later, he looks again. Second floor window. Nothing there. Just the storm. Marcus is in his 50s now, and he said it still feels like it happened yesterday. It was that vivid. And that's the part that lingers. Because memories from childhood, they don't usually stay that sharp. But this one did. And you might start asking, why that one? There's another story from someone that I will call Daniel. This one is different. It's a little older. It's more grounded in context. He said his first experience with sleep paralysis happened in 1998 at a hospital. Sadly, his dad was dying, so everything around him was already very heavy. Emotionally, physically, mentally. He said he woke up and couldn't move. That part was immediate. That weight in the chest, that pressure, that feeling that your body isn't responding, even though you're fully aware. But that's when he noticed something above him, near the ceiling. At first, it wasn't a figure, just movement. As if something was forming, specifically near the ceiling fan. And then it changed. Something shifted. It became something more defined. He described it as a kind of entity. Dark. Not neutral. And the fear was immediate. Not curiosity, not confusion, just fear. And if you've ever felt that kind of fear, you know that it doesn't stay in your head. You feel it all throughout your entire body. Your stomach tightens. Your chest locks. Your hands are striving to do anything. Even just wiggle your fingers, something, but they can't. And right when it seems like you can't take it anymore, the paralysis breaks. The room returns. Everything looks normal again. But the experience doesn't leave. He spent years trying to understand it, researching, looking for explanations, trying to figure out if what he experienced was internal or something else. And even now, he doesn't land on a clear answer. He just knows. He just knows how real it felt. And that's where these stories start to overlap. Different people, different situations, different explanations, different belief systems, but the same core experience. Awareness without control, a presence without explanation, and something in the room that doesn't behave the way that you expect it to. Most people who experience something like this only go through it once, maybe a few times, and then they move on. They explain it, they forget it, but some people don't forget the details. Not the pressure, not the stillness, and not the shape. Standing in the corner. And maybe it is just the brain, filling in gaps, creating something familiar out of something unknown. That's a reasonable explanation. But it doesn't really explain why that shape keeps showing up the same way for people who have never met. They've never compared notes. They've never expected to see anything at all. And maybe that doesn't mean anything. Or maybe it's just one of those things that doesn't fully resolve. It just happens in the same place, right between sleep and waking states. You'll notice out of those two stories, the first one, Marcus saw a shadowy figure wearing a wide-brimmed hat. But you'll also notice this was fully coherent, fully awake. I don't think this was sleep paralysis at all. And according to the note that he left me, it sounds like he was wide awake. His parents were literally out. He literally had a babysitter in. He was literally watching the storm outside of the window, and there was a shadowy figure that he felt like he was telekinetically connecting to and experiencing that figure laughing. Our story with Daniel is classic sleep paralysis. And with all of the variables that were included inside of that story, it's an absolute hallmark of the experience. If you've got stories, please send them to me. Leave them in the comments wherever you're listening to right now, or drop us a line at the Midnight Drive, 402-610-2836. Leave us a message, tell us your story, and if you'd like, we can even play your message on the show. We would love to have you. Let us know what your name is and where you're located. We'll make sure to pick you up as we're on our way on the Midnight Drive.